What's up, everyone, and welcome to Keep Moving Forward with your coach, Kelly Michelle. I am here today to talk about what is coming, and that is the holiday season. So we are here in the beginning of October, and typically this is the 10 to 12 week time frame where people start to get very nervous about all these outings that they have with family members coming up, and how are they going to track their macros or keep on target with their health goals during the holiday time. So while a lot of people revert back to their old behavior of just dieting all year long, 9 months out of the year, and then YOLOing over the holiday season, only to regain that weight back over that 3 month time frame, we are not going to do that. Instead, we are going to have an ideal approach to dieting, but realistic planning. So ideal would be looking at your next 12 weeks and portioning the first 6 weeks into a remaining fat loss phase. Then after that 6 weeks, you go into Thanksgiving. And Thanksgiving time is typically where we have our clients focus more on strength training, eating at maintenance, and enjoying the holiday season. Those three things are really important, especially for family, fellowship, and fun. And a lot of people really want to enjoy that time frame without having guilt and shame. And the only way to do that is to do it successfully once so that you can do it again. So how are we going to do that? One, we're going to continue to keep planning. Planning is very, very important. Planning to prepare your meals or have grab and go items during the holiday time is absolutely pivotal. So even if you can plan to have breakfast and lunch on your tracker and then you leave dinner open and maybe even a little bit more of your macros for something sweet or a glass of wine occasionally, because again, we're going to be getting invited to more social events and we will choose to probably partake on those journeys more frequently during the holiday season. Starting at right about Halloween is where I start to hear people make excuses for their behavior. But I think a remedy for that is just setting up realistic expectations for your dieting time frame for your calorie deficit, the beginning of October until the middle of November, and then easing up on the calorie deficit in the middle of November and starting to add some extra calories during the middle of November until you are at Thanksgiving, where it's not a binge fest. You're going to set aside enough of your macros for the day, whether that's 1,200 of your calories out of 1,800 or say 800 out of 1,600. If you know you want to have a lot of the things that are served at Thanksgiving, start building your plate right now. We have a handy and friendly guide that we give to all of our clients, and we are more than happy to share it with you. The description below will have a link for you. So if you're joining us new here on YouTube, feel free to click that link and use the estimates for our traditional Thanksgiving holiday food. Now, again, there might be some foods on there that I did not include, but I think we hit almost everything. So please feel free to use that. I would encourage you to start setting aside enough macros for Thanksgiving right now. And then once you get closer to Thanksgiving and your eyeballs are not as big as you think they are, you can actually knock a few things off there the day before or the day of Thanksgiving. But I would realistically put everything that you would like to enjoy into your tracker ahead of time, whether that's pumpkin pie, maybe a little bit of pumpkin pie and pecan pie. Put those in and use values that are realistic. Don't cheat yourself. Don't lie about the estimations. Look at 2 or 3 pieces of data for pumpkin pie, standard slice. Look at 2 or 3 pieces of data for pecan pie, standard slice, and adjust it to half if you're going to do a half of a slice, and put it in there and don't feel guilty about it and move on. Another thing that's going to be critical is prioritizing protein at Thanksgiving as well. We prioritize protein during the week. We try to eat within a normal eating window during the week, but for this occasion, we're probably going to have a little bit different eating window for Thanksgiving, because Thanksgiving is usually a little bit later in the day. So my advice is to have a very low-fat, high-protein meal for breakfast, a shake or a snack before you go to Thanksgiving, and leave a little bit of extra for after the Thanksgiving meal. That way you've got at least half or a little bit more of your fats and carbs and protein left for the rest of the day. You're not just starving all morning to binge at Thanksgiving, and you're not just going to eat very lightly in the morning and then again have your Thanksgiving dinner meal and then binge at night because you felt so restricted and your eating window was off that day. I would come out with a good plan to have a decent, stable breakfast before you go to Thanksgiving. That way you are not wantful for much of anything over the limit, because you get to have a lot of these things in moderation because you are a flexible dieter. So if we're prioritizing protein, we're planning and we're having a set aside amount of macros for that party or event. We have reasonable goals for alcohol. Maybe 1 week we know we're going to be drinking more alcohol, so we don't eat out very often during that week, because we know we're going to be going to 2 or 3 different parties that will involve alcohol, throwing us kind of out of our fat loss phase. And even if we are in the fat loss phase and we're practicing some of these strategies, that will work really well when we go to more of a maintenance mindset at the end of November and all the way through December. So if essentially you lost 25 pounds this year and you lose another 2 or 3 pounds before the end of October, right? And you go into December and you stay within a pound to a pound and a half of your maintenance goal, you crushed it. And that's what we really want to shoot for, because that's going to be a realistic thing that I think most people can obtain during December. So when December hits, you need to be ready to flip the switch to out of fat loss and into maintenance. Not weighing yourself every single day on the scale, maybe weighing yourself at the beginning of the week and 2 or 3 times near the end of the week, just to check that whether or not, you're staying within that little 1 to 1.5 pound range. You don't need to be psychotic. You don't need to be overcorrecting. If you make a mistake, try really hard to get right back to your calorie goal ranges and just work from there. It's probably going to take, again, a 7 to 10 day time frame of regular weighing yourself to see that your averages are right back within the normal frame. Most of you are accurate enough because you have been practicing this year while you're in your fat loss phases to be accurate while you have more. And it's very important to be at calorie balance no matter what your goal is. That's how you maintain your results. So if your protein is 140 grams while you're dieting, but it's only 120 while you're in maintenance, but your fats and carbs are way higher, the goal and objective is still to hit within those perfect macro ranges each day, even if you have to come home and spend the extra 2 or 3 minutes trying to get to calorie balance for the night. This is going to be a pivotal exercise. It's going to help you go back into fat loss phases and into maintenance phases with grace and glory, because you'll know exactly what your target is. And that target is to hit those macro goals every day, no matter what the goal is, fat loss or maintenance. That is going to paint a major clear picture for you when you go to step on the scale for 7 to 10 days in a row again, because you'll have a midweek low, you'll have your averages, and you can look at where your weight is after correcting from the holiday and say, oh my gosh, I'm within a pound to a pound and a half of where I was at before the holidays. This is awesome. Now you only have a pound to a pound and a half to correct from versus the usual 5 to 7 pounds. And in some cases, people actually gain 7 to 10 pounds over the holidays on average. So I don't want you guys to be one of those Americans that diet so hard during the year only to come back around the holidays and kind of lose it and let that train go off the tracks. I'd rather you have a plan going into it. Keep up with your weekly exercise. Even if you are not able to go to the gym because you've got family members coming in town or you're traveling and you don't have access to your equipment, pick up walking, which is one of the most highly underrated exercises and very, very impactful for the holiday season. I would try to keep as many things as stable as you normally do during your habit-formed weeks, even when you're eating at maintenance. So if you can keep your water intake about the same, if you can keep your activity about the same, even if it's not lifting, just jump right on something that you know you can stick with and stick with it, because it's going to keep that habit fresh in your brain. It's going to keep verifying that you did your activity, even if it wasn't your usual activity. Again, don't feel bad because you can't strength train. Just accommodate for it in your macros. If your expenditure is a little bit lower because you know that 1 week you're going to be traveling and you won't be able to get to the gym, but you're going to be able to do some walking, maybe you drop your carbs down just a little bit with your coach that week, and that's something that you can communicate. Now, some of you are watching this on YouTube and you don't have a coach. So if you need any guidance on how to shift in and out of these fat loss phases, please feel free to reach out to us. One of our coaches will get back to you within a very timely manner. And if you are in our program already, you're going to learn how to do this so you don't need to be reliant on your coach long term, and you have the most successful tracking holiday season where you get to enjoy alcohol, sweets, treats, goodies, and fellowship with your family. And sometimes you'll even have a little bit of extra food at the end of the day to fill with high quality sources. And that is what I would recommend. If you get to the end of the day and you've been having sources that are maybe not as high quality, or you've been drinking some alcohol to fill your carbohydrates or fat, depending on which program you're in, then you might decide that at the end of the day, you're going to really take charge of having more nutrient-dense, high-quality foods to top off your day. What might look like for somebody who's going to top off their day is, let's say we had a whole bunch of fun things and goodies and cookies and brownies and bars and some wine. Maybe we would come home and have a little bit of non-fat Greek yogurt that's lower sugar. Maybe we have some protein and carbs from a solid source like some turkey or a little bit of potato or toast and some eggs. We would use something that would be more nutrient dense, that's going to have a little bit more volume. And that is what we're going to have instead of topping it off with more cookies, more goodies, and say a shake. Because the next day, what you're going to notice is on days where you have eaten foods that have very low nutrient value and also liquid forms of food, you will see that a few days later, you are probably hungry. One, because you didn't maybe eat within that normal window, but two, because you didn't have your normal food volume, and you were probably lacking fiber because you chose carb options that were more along the lines of processed and packaged, therefore less fiber in them. So that's just something to keep in mind. The next day after you have a lot of goodies or you have some alcohol and goodies, just make sure that when you wake up that next morning, you plan to come out with a higher volume meal to ensure that you do not have hunger the next day and usually the following, typically 2 or 3 days. Now, if you accidentally go over or you don't fill your macros during the holiday time frame, don't fret. Get right back on track, but just note that about 2 or 3 days later, after that change to calorie balance, upward or downward, you are probably going to have a little bit of hunger because you were off on calorie balance. So calorie balance, making sure that your meals are paired with a serving of protein, fat, carbs, and fiber is going to ensure that you stay satiated between your meals. You might actually come out with a heavier meal for breakfast and lunch following days where you have had more flexible food, more packaged and processed food, and of course, liquid forms of food. I hope this was impactful for you guys. We'll be back next week to talk about how to handle and manage stresses from our family members who may not understand our health goals and probably don't share the same goals. Thank you and take care.